Welcome back. Close your eyes for just a moment and imagine it is a warm evening in the summer of 575 BCE, and you are standing on a raised terrace above the Euphrates River, somewhere near the heart of the ancient world. Below you, the water moves slow and green, carrying reed boats loaded with dates, wool, and pottery. Somewhere behind you, glazed brick lions the color of lapis and gold catch the last light of the sun, and the smell of roasting barley bread drifts up from a courtyard kitchen. Children are laughing near a canal. A merchant is arguing, cheerfully, over the price of tin. None of them know they are living inside what will one day be called one of the great wonders of the ancient world, and none of them know how much of it will eventually vanish beneath the sand, misremembered, mythologized, and doubted by future generations who will wonder if it was ever really there at all. Using AI-assisted reconstructions, restored fragments of Babylonian art, and the accounts of ancient travelers, we are going to walk through this city as it actually stood, layer by layer, from its humble beginnings to its most dazzling height, and by the end, you will also see exactly what remains of it today, out in the Iraqi desert, where the mud brick bones of Babylon still wait to be understood. Long before Babylon was a byword for splendor, it was a modest settlement on the Euphrates, one of many small towns scattered across the flat, fertile plain of southern Mesopotamia. Its earliest name, Babylon, is believed to mean Gate of the Gods, but in its first centuries there was little that was godlike about it. It was a farming town, dependent on irrigation canals dug by hand and maintained by generations of families who understood the river's moods better than any king. The soil here was extraordinarily rich, built up over millennia by Euphrates floodwater, and it was this soil, not conquest, that first gave Babylon its value. Early Babylonians grew barley, dates, and sesame, raised sheep for wool, and traded along river routes that connected them to Sumerian cities to the south and Assyrian territories to the north. For centuries, Babylon existed in the shadow of older, more powerful neighbors. The people who lived there, laying mud brick walls and tending canal banks, had no reason to believe their small city would ever be spoken of in the same breath as the pyramids of Egypt. History, as it so often does, was quietly gathering itself elsewhere, waiting for the right ruler and the right century. That century arrived under Nebuchadnezzar II, who took the throne in 605 BCE and transformed Babylon into what many historians consider the largest and most architecturally ambitious city on earth at that time. By the height of his reign, Babylon is believed to have sprawled across roughly 900 hectares, protected by inner and outer walls so massive that later Greek writers claimed a 4-horse chariot could turn around on top of them. Modern estimates suggest the outer walls may have stretched over 15 kilometers in circuit, built from sun-dried mud brick faced with kiln-fired brick to resist the region's punishing weather. At the city's ceremonial heart stood the Ishtar Gate, an eastern entrance covered in brilliant blue glazed bricks, decorated with rows of golden dragons and bulls in relief, each tile fired and fitted with a precision that still impresses modern ceramicists. Walking through it, you would have felt impossibly small, the walls rising more than 11 meters above your head, the glaze catching sunlight like something almost otherworldly. Just beyond it ran the processional way, a broad ceremonial boulevard paved with limestone and red breccia slabs, wide enough for entire religious processions and military parades to move through the city in view of the public. Nearby stood Etemenanki, a massive stepped ziggurat dedicated to the god Marduk, believed by many scholars to be the architectural inspiration behind the biblical Tower of Babel. It rose in tiers, possibly close to 90 meters at its peak, though its precise final height remains debated among archaeologists, since much of its upper structure was lost to time and later demolition. Even during Nebuchadnezzar's reign, construction was constant. Scribes recorded ongoing repairs to canal walls damaged by flooding, unfinished sections of temple complexes, and labor disputes among brickmakers. Babylon at its height was not a finished monument. It was a living construction site, dust in the air, scaffolding against temple walls, forever being rebuilt even as it was being admired. At the spiritual and civic center of the city stood the Temple of Marduk, known as a sagila, where priests conducted daily rituals believed to maintain cosmic order and the favor of the gods. Babylonian religious life was deeply layered, blending older Sumerian and Akkadian traditions with newer Babylonian beliefs, so that walking through the temple district, You would have seen shrines to older deities standing quietly alongside grand new dedications to Marduk, the city's patron god. Judicial and civic life often unfolded in the same spaces as religious life, since Babylonian law, closely tied to earlier traditions like the Code of Hammurabi centuries before, was understood as divinely sanctioned order made visible. Public squares near the temples doubled as marketplaces and gathering points where disputes were settled, contracts were witnessed, and administrative scribes recorded transactions on clay tablets in cuneiform script, thousands of which have survived to this day, giving historians an extraordinarily intimate record of ordinary Babylonian bureaucracy, from grain shipments to marriage contracts. Step away from the temples, though, and Babylon reveals itself as something rowdier and more human. Estimates suggest the city may have housed well over 100,000 people at its peak, making it among the largest urban populations in the ancient world. The streets nearest the river were crowded and loud, filled with the smell of fish, baking bread, animal dung, and river mud. Narrow residential lanes wound between mud-brick houses, some no more than 1 or 2 rooms, while wealthier merchants built multi-story homes around shaded interior courtyards. Class divides were visible everywhere, from the quality of a person's sandals to the grain of their bread, since barley bread was common while wheat bread was considered a finer, costlier product. Workers left their marks quite literally, scratching tally marks and short notes into bricks and pottery, an ancient equivalent of graffiti that occasionally recorded complaints, jokes, or simple proof of a laborer's presence on a project. Markets buzzed with the trade of wool, dates, beer, metal tools, and imported goods from as far as the Iranian plateau and the Levant, carried in by donkey caravan and river barge alike. For public leisure and civic pride, few places rivaled the riverside quays and the broad public squares near the processional way, where festivals, especially the New Year Akitu festival, drew enormous crowds each spring. During Akitu, the statue of Marduk was paraded through the streets in a ceremony believed to renew the king's divine mandate and the city's cosmic order for the coming year, drawing residents and visitors from surrounding regions into days of ritual, feasting, and public spectacle. It functioned much like a great civic theater, binding an enormous, diverse population together through shared ceremony, and any disruption to the festival, whether from war or political instability, was taken as a deeply troubling omen. For privilege and luxury, nothing compared to the royal palace complex of Nebuchadnezzar, a sprawling structure of courtyards, throne rooms, and private chambers decorated with glazed brick reliefs of lions and rosettes in vivid blues, yellows, and whites. Many historians associate this palace with the legendary Hanging Gardens, although archaeological confirmation remains uncertain and their exact location, or even their existence in the form later Greek writers described, is still debated among scholars. Whether or not tiered, irrigated gardens rose above the palace walls exactly as later legend claimed, the palace itself was undeniably a showcase of engineering and artistic wealth, designed to overwhelm foreign dignitaries with the sheer scale of Babylonian power. And yet, for all its grandeur, this was still a place built on the same river mud as the poorest homes nearby, and whatever was coming for Babylon would, in time, spare neither the palace nor the humblest mud-brick house along the canal. The turning point for Babylon did not arrive as a single catastrophic night, but as a gradual erosion of power following a golden age. After Nebuchadnezzar's death in 562 BCE, the kingdom passed through a series of shorter, less stable reigns, and by 539 BCE, the Persian king Cyrus the Great stood at Babylon's gates. According to ancient accounts, the Persian forces are believed to have diverted the Euphrates, lowering the water level enough to allow soldiers to enter the city along the riverbed itself, bypassing its legendary walls almost entirely. Whether the city fell through clever siegecraft, internal political betrayal, or some combination the historical record cannot fully untangle, the practical result was the same. Babylon's independence ended in a matter of hours, with remarkably little large-scale destruction compared to other ancient conquests. Cyrus is recorded as presenting himself not as a conqueror but as a restorer of order, a political strategy that helped the city continue functioning under new Persian administration rather than collapsing outright. For the people inside the walls that day, the disorientation was likely profound. Many probably believed the city's divine protection made conquest nearly impossible, only to wake and find foreign soldiers already in the streets, the change in power almost bloodlessly complete before most residents fully understood what was happening. Babylon did not vanish immediately after this. It continued as an important administrative and cultural center under Persian, and later Hellenistic, rule for centuries, with Alexander the Great reportedly intending to make it a capital of his empire before his death in 323 BCE cut those plans short. But gradually, the city's political relevance faded. Canals silted up without the same centralized maintenance. Populations shifted toward newer regional capitals, and Babylon slowly emptied. Bricks were quarried from its ruined structures for use in other buildings. Temples fell into disrepair, and over centuries, sand and river silt slowly buried what remained. By the medieval period, Babylon existed largely as legend, referenced in religious texts and travelers' tales, its precise location known only vaguely, its true scale entirely forgotten. Serious rediscovery began in the 19th century, when European travelers and early archaeologists started identifying mounds near the modern Iraqi town of Hillah as the possible remains of ancient Babylon. Major excavation began in earnest under German archaeologist Robert Koldewey starting in 1899, whose team spent over a decade carefully uncovering the Ishtar Gate, the processional way, and portions of the palace complex. What they found startled the archaeological world, from the vivid preservation of glazed brickwork buried for millennia to thousands of cuneiform tablets recording the everyday administrative life of the city with astonishing detail. Objects as ordinary as ration lists for royal prisoners, receipts for beer deliveries, and children's school exercises on clay tablets survived where grander monuments had crumbled, offering historians an intimate window into daily Babylonian life that no palace wall could provide alone. It is easy, standing among ruins or looking at glazed bricks behind museum glass, to forget that these were once someone's home, someone's workplace, someone's daily walk to market. Every worn threshold was crossed thousands of times by real people with real worries, real humor, and real lives that felt as immediate to them as yours does to you now. Babylon's grandeur was never separate from its ordinariness. It was built from both. Today, if you travel to the site near Hillah, Iraq, you can still walk along portions of the ancient processional way, though much of it remains buried or only partially excavated. The original Ishtar Gate itself was removed piece by piece in the early 20th century and painstakingly reconstructed using recovered bricks, and today stands on display in Berlin's Pergamon Museum, one of the most visited artifacts of the ancient Near East, while a smaller, partial reconstruction remains at the original Babylon site itself. The ziggurat of Etemenanki survives today mostly as a low, water-filled depression, its upper levels long gone, though its massive foundation outline can still be traced by archaeologists and visitors alike. Sections of Nebuchadnezzar's palace walls still stand in places, their glazed brick decoration faded, but occasionally visible where conservation efforts have protected them, and ongoing Iraqi and international preservation projects continue working to stabilize and study what remains, even amid the site's difficult modern history of war and looting. Standing there today, among low mud brick walls and wind-blown sand, it takes real imagination to picture the blue glazed towers and crowded riverside markets that once filled this same space. But the outlines are there, patient and waiting, for anyone willing to look closely enough. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and walking through Babylon's rise, its splendor, and its long, quiet fade into legend and rediscovery. If there's a lost city, ancient civilization, or forgotten event you'd love to see brought back to life like this, drop it in the comments below, and let me know what you thought of today's journey through Mesopotamia's most legendary city. I'll see you in the next one.